Welcome. This is Happy Childless Mindset Podcast.
I'm here with Maggie. She is a childless woman. She is also one of the leaders of a running team. She's an author. So, hi and welcome.
Hi, I'm happy to be here.
So, tell me a little about your happiness and what makes you happy in your childless life, because your child is not by choice, just like me. So,
Yeah, I'm childless after infertility. About 10 years on and off, a few years of trying actively and then some years of not not trying but still hoping.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, I find various things in my life that have brought a lot of joy. So one of them, as you mentioned, is the running club. That was a huge part of my healing journey. Um, so after we had stopped and walked away from fertility treatments, it was something I wanted to get back to. I had been a runner for years, but on and off. And I when we were like in the middle of treatments, it's sometimes really hard to prioritize fitness because you're so tired from
Hormonal.
hormonal. The appointments take up a lot of your time, and then there's always like people who are there telling you don't exercise too much or exercise, lose weight, gain weight. There's a whole like difficult relationship with your body in the middle of that. And so
Yeah.
afterwards, I really wanted to to start running again. And there were some people who did like a women's run fitness at our church on Monday nights. And so I had never been able to join them because I was working at the church, but then while they were running, and then after I, for various reasons, stepped down from that job, I was like, oh, I can start running with them. So I started just doing shorter runs. Like, we would meet, we would do 5K, run, walk, and then decided I wanted to do something bigger. And I signed up for a 10K race and then a half marathon. And that was when I got invited to join another running group that did longer runs. And so
I can't run a block and you talk like 10K. This is fascinating for me. I do lift weights, but I don't run. So it's great that you were able to find an outlet to exercise because not everything is for everyone, you know? And I think that's what you mentioned about lose weight, gain more weight. It's like everyone has a recipe that we have to follow, and it's not meant for everybody.
yeah, and I think people have this idea of fertility that it's much more controllable than it is. I mean, I'm sure there's people out there who, you know, changed their eating habits and got pregnant right away.
Yeah.
Is that why they got pregnant? We don't know. There's no way to know. So people would be like, I remember someone at my work was like, you're walking too fast. You need to stop walking so fast. And I was like, I'm pretty sure there's no correlation between fast walking and fertility, but people just have these opinions. You should lose weight, you should gain weight, you can't get and it's silly because people of all sizes get pregnant, and that's not my issue. My doctor never said that was an issue. So, but it's hard when you're in the moment to know what's the right thing to do. So it was kind of liberating as I was, finding my own healing journey to go, I get to decide what happens to my body, like, and the running was a huge part of that. So started running with this group, started doing longer races, and eventually became part of the leadership team of our running club. And it's been a really great experience, both like getting me outside and hot days, cold days, rainy days, snowy days, like, having somebody else that's waiting for you is a huge motivator. But also like I found a lot of friendships through the club. I think when you're a woman in your 30s and 40s, like often so many women's, all of their friendships are through their kids. And so it was really hard to make new friends because every space that I was in with mostly women was like the first questions that you're asked is about your kids. And then, but because with running, like we have people in their 20s, we have people in their 60s, we have moms, we have dads, we have single people, we have childless people. And so there's this commonality. We all enjoy running. And so I have these friendships across gender and family and career and nationality. So that's a really great experience for me.
Yeah, I find something similar in the gym.
Mm.
We go to train, so it doesn't matter if your child is a parent 20s or 60, it's a group where we talk about fitness and sometimes we extend the conversation, but having or not a child is not an issue. And I found something really interesting is that people that exercise, wherever they do yoga, running, or yoga. You pronounce it yoga. Exercise or any kind are kind of happier. It maybe it has to do with endorphins we release when we exercise, but are less judgmental, more like, yeah, you do you, and everything is kind of easier. I don't know. It's easier to relate. Do you
Hmm.
find that yourself, or
Yeah, I find like we have this basis of running. So there's always a conversation, like whereas in some social settings, the fallback to conversation is like your kids or your spouse. When we're running together, the default is like, let's talk about running. So you can always say, oh, are you training for something? Or, have you run a long distance before? And so even though we actually do get to know each other quite well, like I've been to people's weddings who met through running, we've
yeah,
had baby showers, we're having a dinner this week for two women that I run with who are retiring. So we celebrate all of our milestones, but then there's always this base conversation about running that we can come
mm,
back to. And there's a group of us going on vacation next month to South Africa to
that's
run.
great. Oh yeah, I
So,
remember you told me about the South Marathon, South
yeah,
Africa Marathon.
yeah. So it's just been really amazing to make these kind of friendships. And there was times like in my 30s when we were going through fertility and it felt like I was losing all my friends. They were going in different directions and I never knew that I would have these really interesting friendships with really fascinating people from literally all over the world. Like our South Africa group has members from France, from Korea, from South Africa. So it's very cool.
Yeah, and yeah, I see a lot of friendships starting in, as I said, me for in the gym and you running because of a commonality that is not involved in our fertility or infertility life, and it's so great. I wanted to ask you about like when you decided to start to stop the treatments, the fertility treatments, did you like jump into running like that, or did you take your time and grieve, and how did you cope with the like I need to stop doing this?
Yeah, it was a process. I mean, I had been running on and off, so I did keep running,
Yeah,
but definitely there was a few years of grieving and trying to figure out what was next. For me, I just, I tend to be a pros and cons list kind of person.
yeah,
But when we left the treatment, it was partly because I really woke up one day and said, I can't do this anymore. I can't. I can't keep putting
yeah,
myself through this. If somebody could promise me that there's a baby at the end of it, then I would keep going, but nobody can say that.
yeah.
It's so I just woke up one day and I was supposed to go to the clinic and get a blood test, and I drove in and I said, I never want to come back. Um, and I did, well, I came back because we used to meet there for a support group, but I didn't go back to any treatment. And um, but really for a long time, I didn't realize I was grieving because nobody really speaks about it like
Yeah.
that. So you don't get a card or you don't get like people bringing food to your house because they don't really recognize this as
Yeah.
a grief. And I didn't realize that it was a grief for me until later when I realized that like I was healing from that. And so for a while, we thought we would just be those people who stop trying and then it happens. And that's what everybody tells you. And it didn't happen, even though like we did all the things. We went on vacation. I started running again. I got a new job. And it was always like, oh, now that we've done this, it's going to happen. And
You
it didn't.
embodied relax that everybody told you to relax and it's going to happen. And yeah, you relax and sometimes it doesn't happen.
Yeah, exactly. So, I didn't realize until later how much running had been a part of that.
Mm.
Um, Really, when I started doing these bigger races and realizing, like, oh, I feel proud of my body. Whereas for so long, I was like, it felt like we were enemies.
Yeah. Yeah, something similar happened to me, both with my body and with the grief. I didn't knew it. I knew it was grief what was happening to me until later that I found the childless community and I started reading about being childless, and it was like on a click sound in my mind, like you were going through that and nobody else told you that. And also now I feel my body is mine and it's not against me. But
Hmm.
I think that's also part of the grief of reconciliation with your body, and that is not broken or it's not a failure, that yeah, it didn't do something you wanted to, but it's still yours and it's still like you can befriend
Hmm.
it.
Yeah, it felt like also for me, people are always saying things to me, to childless people, like, who's going to take care of you when you're old? Or,
Yeah.
you know, you're going to be lonely. And I'm like, I don't know. I have a lot of friends. I think that I will still have friends when I'm old. But I think there was a time when we were coming out of the treatments when it almost felt like, why do I want to do good things to my body when my
Mm.
body keeps failing me? Like, why don't I just sit on the couch and eat like a whole pack of cookies? Like, what's the point? I'm not getting what I wanted out of this. And then, realizing like that's a very short-sighted view. And what I actually want is to be able to be active as long as I can. And I mean, I don't really believe that I'll be on my own in the end. I think I'll have friends and
Yeah.
community because I might, my husband is 9 years older than me. So because I might have to live alone for quite a while. I should take care of myself now because I want to be a person who, like my grandmother was in her 80s and she was going for walks in the neighborhood and we had to tell her to
Slow
stop
down.
stop washing the outdoor windows on a ladder. Like, please let somebody else do this. But that's the kind of person that I want to be. And that starts now. Like you can't wake up at 75 and decide that you want to be active in your senior years. You have to set that groundwork now.
Yeah, something really similar happened to me, but the opposite of your example. My family, my grandmother, she was in a wheelchair because she didn't took care of herself and her body. So I started like, I need to exercise. I need to start now that I'm in my 40s because I want to be independent. I'm sure I will have friends too, but I don't want to be a burden for them either.
Mm.
So yeah, I think that it's a good is my put our mind at ease to think,
Mhm.
yeah, this is something I can do for myself as I grow older and not just dwell in the sorrow of who's going to take care of me.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So you have that community, and I know I think you told me you didn't publish any book, but you write and you are also in the authors community, and that's also awesome.
Thanks. Yeah. I always was, I mean, I'm a librarian, so I've always loved books and reading. When I was a kid, I would write stories and had this idea that I would publish them all one day. And, then life happens. You're a student and all you're doing is writing papers, and the last thing you want to do is write. So that kind of got put on the back burner for a long time. And then a couple of years ago, I just decided I wanted to start writing again. And I was at a live presentation with Jasmine Guillory, who's a American writer that I like. And I was sitting there thinking, and she writes romance novels, and I thought I could write a romance novel. I want to write something that makes me happy at the end.
Yeah.
And so I did, and I'm trying to find an agent and a publisher for that book. I wrote it about 2 years ago, but I've gone through some edits and
Yeah, it
been
is a
working.
process.
It's a process, and I've learned a lot. And then I've written a couple of other books, which are also being edited. And in the process of that, I have met a lot of writers. I joined a local group called the Toronto Romance Writers, and I'm now volunteering with them on the board. We do like monthly write-ins where we go to a cafe and whoever wants to can sit there and we can write, or we can talk, or we can work on other things. That's really been amazing. You go into these situations, at least for me, the first time I went to one, I didn't know what to look for because I didn't read the whole description of how to find them. And so I just like was so awkward. I just sat at a table by myself, but I did get some work done. So that was good. Then the next time I realized and I went in to sit with them, and, in my mind, I was like, but these are real writers and I'm just this person who wrote one thing. And everybody was so welcoming and encouraging. And anytime you have a question, people will, be happy to answer you and say, "Oh, wow, good for you. You wrote a book. That's the first step." So that's been a really great experience. And it was a way I didn't plan to write about infertility. In fact, I very much was like, no infertility, because I had written a very like depressing book a few years before where I was processing a lot, and it
Yeah.
was all about infertility. And then it had an open ending
Yeah.
because I just couldn't at the time write like the happy ending because I hadn't gotten there yet.
Yeah.
So this time I was like, no fertility stuff. And then it crept in anyway. So there is a character who had dealt with infertility and is trying to like reclaim their life and find joy again. So that was fun to write about. It was emotional, but it was good. And then other times, the other books don't really have anything fertility related. It's just, quirky people finding love. So that's
But
been fun.
I love two things about this. One is I also write as an outlet because I
Mhm.
think it's important. So the first thing you wrote might be very sad and have an open ending but I think you were able to voice your feelings in a way a lot of us can't.
Mhm.
And the other thing is, I love how you found two communities that are sometimes unthinkable for us, because we shell out ourselves in the childless identity and we have to open to another possibility and find things that we love to do and not necessarily are child related because I think in the other community you told me about the running community, but the others community there's also parents and childless and people in 60s and people in the 20s and it's everything is welcome.
Mhm. Yeah, I think one of the things I've tried to do in my journey very deliberately is to be more open to opportunities that come. I used to be someone who I'm naturally pretty shy. And, you know, I wouldn't have gone to a write-in where I didn't know anyone because or I wouldn't even like go to something that someone invited me to because I would be so nervous. Like maybe they only invited me because they felt sorry for me or something.
Yeah.
Has been good to just go, you know, this said everyone's welcome, so I'm gonna go. Or, my friend had an extra ticket for a theater subscription a few years ago. And she said, does anybody want it? And past me would have said, oh, she probably doesn't want to go with me. And then I thought, well, why not ask? And now we go to shows together several times a year. So it's been a good experience to just say, why not? Why
Yeah.
not show up at this community? Because I think when we are childless, we don't have those kind of built-in communities of you know, the daycare, the
Yeah.
parents group, school. Like there's a playground next to my house, but I can't go there and hang out and just meet people because
Yeah, it would be a creepy
I'm here.
woman that stop kids.
I'm already the weird neighbor who runs past their house all the time. But so I think we maybe have to be a bit more intentional about where we look for community.
I hope you're enjoying this episode. If you are, please share with someone that might enjoy it too. Okay, back to the episode. Yeah, when we did the pre-recording meeting for us to know each other, I was blown away for your open-mindedness and you put yourself out there. And I'm trying to like inspire others to do the same. I'm an ambivert. I've had my extrovert moments and then I retreat home like I don't want to interact anymore. But I get that for an introvert it's harder and harder with childlessness, it's like I don't feel worthy of talking to anybody now. And I want to like communicate that yeah, there are so many spaces where we can go and form a community. It doesn't have to be a close net of childless people. So
Mhm.
I was blown away when I talked to you. I remember we finished our meeting and I was like, whoa, I still can kind of conquer more places. You inspire me to not just go to the gym, but make some other moves.
Yeah, it's been a journey. Definitely, I wouldn't have seen this coming, 10 years ago when we were still in the middle of it all. And sometimes I am like guilty of doing too many things.
Yeah.
So I like to say yes to things, but sometimes I say yes too much, and then I'm tired and I'm like, okay, I don't need to be on two or three boards just because people ask me. But it has been a really good experience to realize that when I put myself forward, often those communities are there that that are welcoming.
Yeah.
And I might have assumed before that, I wasn't welcome either because I'm not a fast enough runner or I don't have kids or I haven't published a book. And actually, in many cases, people are just very excited to meet a new person and welcome them.
Yeah, I think I kind of made myself open when I ask for people to come to my podcast.
Mhm.
And I still feel like a little shame of asking them like, oh, this is a pre-recorded meeting, or we're going to record an episode, and I'm trying to overcompensate that they are losing their time with me. And that's what I was trying to tell you. You inspire me to, yeah, but they say yes, and they could have said no, and I'm giving something too. So I really am grateful for you and for what you're telling and to open to do this episode.
Thanks. I'm really excited. I listen to podcasts a lot and I'm always like, it would be cool to be on a podcast. So when I saw that you were looking for guests, I was like, yes, this is my yes to do it.
Yeah, I'm still a bit awkward doing it, but it takes practice. And I read this post recently that practice doesn't make perfection, it makes progress. And I'm I'm doing that and I'm enjoying it. And again, I go back to you. You started running and you started writing and editing, and it's a process, but it's the journey that is important.
Yeah, for sure. Like
Yeah.
I do these long runs because I'm training and some days it's like really hard to get out of bed and go and do it. Like we've had a really rough winter this this year, a lot of snow and a lot of cold days. But the process is important, and the days that we run a really hard training run, and then we go get a coffee and then we chat. And so I try to remember, like, it's the journey that is important.
Yeah, I feel that there's a great analogy there with the 10K and the training, because sometimes as we find that we lose the sight of the happy life, because it's like, oh, I don't want to clean the house today, or I don't want to get out of bed. But it's not just we woke up one day and everything is fine. We have to keep training that happiness, that joy, that
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
And it's also true about the books. Like, I know I have another friend that is just finished a book and just finished editing, and she told us, like, this is the hardest thing I've ever done, because it's editing plus coming with the ideas. And now she has a book, and it's like, great, it's an accomplishment, and it's worth to celebrate that milestones. I also,
Yeah, I think we can get bogged down with, like, oh, but I haven't published it, or oh, that, you know, like I ran a marathon in the fall, in October, and but my friends ran a faster marathon, and there's always going to be a bar that's higher. And if we just get caught up with that, then we'll never be proud of what we are doing. Like,
yeah,
okay, I won't ever qualify for the Boston Marathon. I will never be that fast. But that doesn't mean that it's not amazing that I ran the Detroit Marathon and I
yeah.
finished.
Because for me, I couldn't do it. I'm a lousy runner. So it's so important for us to recognize what we are actually accomplishing, because we are not the same. So maybe I can lift weight doing squats that you can't, but I can't run and you can. And we have to like keep trying and keep progressing in what we actually enjoy.
Hmm. Yeah, that's what I've sort of taken on as my plan going forward. As I think, when you're going through the treatments or fertility stuff, you can sort of get bogged down, almost like if you suffer hard and harder, like there'll be a good result, which is
Yeah,
sometimes true. Like, you suffer through training runs to get to the race, but like, I don't have to be depressed in life. Like, I don't have to suffer so that life will give me a baby in the end. Like, I can just
mm,
choose to have a joy-filled life right now. And, obviously I still have to do all the regular things. I go to work, I go to the dentist, all the things that are less, I like my job, but like that are just, the daily things. But like, there's no reason for me to not focus on the things that make me happy. Um, I don't gain anything by making myself do things that don't
yeah,
give me joy. So if I, do all the regular things that I need to do to take care of myself, to pay the bills, and then I spend my weekend, you know, writing and reading books, and then, like, why not? I have that freedom as a childless person. I don't have to, get up at 5 a.m. with a small child. I don't
mm,
have to take care of a kid. That was what I wanted to do originally, but that life wasn't for me. So why don't I do the things that will give me joy in the life that I ended up in, if that makes sense?
yeah. I think I always say the same thing, but it's what you were telling in your own words. It's like the fact that I have this unexpected life doesn't mean I'm kind of a zombie, and I my only worth is just to get a job and then lay on the couch crying. I get to be happy. Yeah, it's not what I dreamt, but I'm building something up. a life that I can be proud of every day. And when I look back in 10 years and it's okay, I didn't give up on life because the baby didn't came, didn't
Hmm.
come, didn't get, yeah.
Yeah.
Brain fog with the tenses. I'm going to
Yeah,
ask you
exactly.
to correct me, to write me at the script. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, it's like what hit me one day was like I can't choose anymore to be a parent. Like that door
Yeah,
closed for me. So the choice is, am I going to be a childless woman who's unhappy, or am I going to be a childless woman who pursues joy? So
yeah.
like if I can't, if that is off the table of being a parent, then the only two options are to be happily childless or unhappily childless. And I'm gonna do what I can to be happy. Um,
Yeah, exactly. It happens to me too. And it's a choice I have to make every day because I still get triggers or sad days or days that yesterday was one of those days where everything that can go wrong goes wrong. And I felt like I'm such a failure. And I cried like half an hour and okay, shake it off and keep moving.
yeah, same. I mean, there are days when it feels heavy, just like anything. I think
Yeah,
what helped me was to remember like any grief is like that. You know, my grandma that I mentioned, she passed away in 2006, and there are still days when I miss her.
yeah.
You know, there's still days when that's heavy, and that's okay because that's what grief is like. So there are still going to be days when I wake up and I'm sad about not being a mother, and then I can choose, to acknowledge that I'm sad, and that's totally normal, and then go on with my day, or do whatever I can do to make myself a little bit, to give myself some self-care. Maybe
Yeah.
it's that I go for a run, maybe I go get a fancy coffee or whatever, but it's normal. Like nobody wakes up and in every moment of their life is filled with joy over every choice that or everything that happened. We all have stuff that we carry around.
And I think at some point, if someone could find that steady happiness, it would be kind of boring or so felt so normal that it's like, yeah, anything. It's like, yeah, I don't get excited about anything because everything is great. I don't know if you saw The Good Place. It's
Yes.
do you remember Heaven? That it was like, yeah, we are happy so much that, yeah, we don't know what to do. We
Yeah, it was a really well done show, and
yeah.
lots to think about.
Yeah, I think I love it because it was a child-free show also. There were no pregnancies or so it was like easygoing and it made helped me reflect in a lot of things about my life. But
Hmm.
Heaven was one of them because it was like, yeah, maybe I if I got the perfect story, the happy ending, the child, the perfect husband, the perfect house, I would still struggle because it wouldn't be a fairy tale of happily ever after.
Yeah, I think we sometimes it's easy when you're dealing with the fertility stuff to sort of think, if it happened for me, everything would be good.
Yeah,
I have everything I wanted, and nobody's nobody ever has everything they want. Like as soon as you do, you want more. And I have friends now that have small kids, friends that have teenagers, and their life isn't perfect. They have stress, some of them really heavy stress,
mm,
divorces, sickness, illness, like their kids just being difficult because that's what teenagers are like. So it's a good reminder to me that like nobody's life is stress free. Nobody's life is perfect.
yeah. Is there anything else you want to share, tell? maybe some publisher hear us and they can connect with you.
Sure. I mean, if anybody's interested, my book that I'm currently looking for representation, it's called Love on the Run. It's about two people who meet in a running community. Initially do not get off on the right foot, but they eventually realize that they are meant for each other. Set in Toronto, which is where I live. So feel free to reach out to me. I think my Instagram is going to be in the comments.
Yeah.
I am working on a website, which hopefully will be live by the time this goes up. So.
It was a real pleasure talking to you both now and before. And yeah, you inspire me. So thank you for that. I know it makes you shy or self-conscious, but it's also something I'm learning to take good compliments when people tell them to. So thank you for inspiring me and hopefully will inspire more people to get happiness in their child's life.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for giving me the chance to talk, and I hope we stay in touch.
Yeah, of course.